Hello, everyone, and thanks for tuning in to PWD Allies podcast. Today's 150th episode. Please subscribe, like, and share the content that you have been viewing or you want to hear. Share it around. Share it to your family, friends, your neighbors, you name it, and stay up to date on lived experience stories and special guests that we have on the show. It's always great to have different guests that join us from time to time that share their lived experience stories or their family members, etc. I love to hear what goes on in the disability community because there's just so much to share and talk about. And today, 150th episode, Neil. This is awesome, and wow, we've reached that mark of almost just over 150th episode. I mean, that's
Yeah,
quite a bit, eh?
in just under 2 years. I mean,
Yeah,
take a bow. That's a lot of shows. That's a
it
lot
is.
of shows. Yeah, and I mean, we said before. I mean, every show that we put out. I mean, we make a joke that we're just kind of flying by the seat of our pants, but it's a lot. It's a lot more than that. I mean,
Yeah.
we put a lot of effort into every show. I mean, for sure, I do a lot of post-production stuff, and every episode it does take a lot of work,
It does.
lot of time, lot of money to invest to make it possible. Computer upgrades and software licenses and the whole bit. So yeah.
It definitely takes a lot of work and a lot of money to keep things going for the show. And like I've mentioned before in the previous podcasts, and there's no obligation. I don't put any pressure on anybody. But if you really like the content that you're viewing and you're listening to on the podcast version of the show, and you're able to help out, definitely, if that's what you feel that you'd like to do and you didn't really know, how do I help them out if I wanted to, definitely reach out to our email addresses. Neil has them posted on the site there. Or if Neil wants to read it out, that's fine too. But
Well,
yeah,
I mean, we also have them at the end of every episode. We
yeah.
have them listed there, but yours is what is it?
Well,
Brent dot Weatherman? Is it
no,
Brent?
no, it's weatherman.langley at
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
gmail.com. Yeah.
Yeah. Weatherman.langley at gmail.com. And mine is Neil JM. So NEILJM .nm at gmail.com.
Yeah. The reason why I say Langley, weatherman.langley at gmail.com is because Langley is where we moved from. And it's always home to me. And that's kind of where it all started from. Advocacy started from there, and it progressed all the way to Victoria, BC, the capital
Mhm.
region of BC. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's nice to continue the journey for advocacy. And there's so many different topics of advocacy that I focus on. My number one advocacy is making sure that people with disabilities have proper financial support,
Yeah.
and that is always a given. Because nobody should be living, in abject poverty or like way below the poverty level. I mean, when people say way below the poverty, well, isn't there supposed to be a guideline? Like, yeah, there's a
Hmm.
line like of
Hmm.
poverty, and if there's below poverty. Now, when you have a person with disabilities, that escalates even more of below poverty because you
Yeah.
have ongoing expenses.
Yeah.
Does that mean that e-readers for people who are visually impaired or sight impaired or blind, braille? You have a service dog. I mean, you've got the pet food. I mean, magnifying glasses for people who are visually impaired or sight impaired, or and I mean the list goes on. Like, I mean, and that's just for a person with disabilities in like for sight impairments. I mean,
Yeah. And
yeah,
they always talk about the crip tax, but I mean, it really is like, a disability does cost a lot more money than just,
oh yeah,
if you're able-bodied. It just does.
or
One thing,
maybe glasses too, right? And yeah,
one thing I wanted to just briefly touch on before we get going here. I mean, I hope people watched our 22 favorite episodes.
Mm. Oh, love that.
We just
Great.
put that out just the other day at another podcast, and we kind of highlighted 22 favorites. But you know what? I went back and I looked again at the list. I kept pouring over the list to make the 22,
Mhm.
and I mean it was so hard to narrow it down. Like I thought, well, there's no way. Originally the cutoff was going to be 15 episodes because I
Mhm.
thought, we'll do the 10% rule. 10% of 150 is 15, and
Yeah.
then I thought, well, there's no way I can cut it down to 15. That's just too because there's too many good episodes. So
Oh, yeah.
then I thought, well, maybe 17, and I thought, no, I can't, still it's 17 is not enough. So I kept bumping it up to 22. But you know what? There still is about 3 episodes of that I wish we had put on the list. So that would have made that up to 25. And I'll tell you what those three are. And
Sure.
I list them as honorable mentions, because one just kind of popped up when I was going through I went through season one again. I went through season two again, and
Mhm.
one that really stood out to me was actually back, episode 10. Remember we were talking the last podcast, we talked about origin stories,
Yeah.
and you had your origin story, and we flagged that one. But actually, episode 10 is kind of your first origin story, where
Mhm.
we talk about, or you talked about, the Twitter Spaces in depth, and kind
Mhm.
of what went wrong, and
Yeah.
why you left, why you ended up leaving Twitter Spaces, and
Mhm.
why we relaunched, onto here. So actually, episode 10 is kind of another, origin story. It's kind of the prequel origin story.
Mhm.
And I kind of regret that we didn't include that one, because I mean it's a bit of a downer episode, to be honest, like because it wasn't one that was like, it was a pretty, you had a heavy message, right? It was
Yes.
because we were talking about basically harassment. You were being harassed, and you basically got turfed off your own show, and so it was a kind of a heavy message, and it was one that you had to say. You
Mhm.
had you had to get it out there.
Yes.
um having said all that, I think it still is an important message, because it does talk about the whole origin of why you wanted to start the Twitter Spaces at the very beginning anyway, and then kind of what all happened with that, and how we moved everything over here. So if anybody's interested, go back and check season 1, episode 10. That
Mhm.
is actually your, I mean, so you actually have two origin story
Yeah.
episodes in season 1. You have the episode 10, and what was the other one? It was, I'm trying to remember now. It was 39, I think. Was it 39? I believe so. I'm just going off the top of my memory, but I think
Oh, yeah.
I think it was 39. Mine was 33, and I remember that. And I think yours was 39 for season 1. But yeah, this episode 10 is another origin story, and it was basically how, the Twitter Spaces came to be, and then how we moved everything over,
Mhm.
onto YouTube. So that's a really good one to look into for anybody that wants to go back and
Mhm.
view that one. They should. The other one that I regret that we didn't put on, was a really important VIP, person. That was actually from Dan. He recommended that, Dan Trace. He
Mhm.
recommended, this guest, and it was Mike Schreiner.
Oh, yes.
It
Yes.
was MPP Mike Schreiner
Yep.
from
Right up.
Ontario, Guelph, Ontario. He's the Green MPP there, and that's a pretty significant get there too. So we probably should have put him on the list, and so again, another honorable mention that probably should have made the list. And
Mhm.
then the third one, again, that I kind of regret is, that we didn't put on the list, is Megan Gilmore, and that was season 2, episode 26. Megan Gilmore, and she's a writer reporter for AMI and Canadian Affairs,
Mhm.
and that was an episode all about MAID. And I know, um, some people don't like to talk about MAID, or some people are really for it or really against it. It's a really hot button issue, but it was a good episode. I thought we handled it well. Megan was very knowledgeable. She dispensed a lot of really good information on the episode. You know, for me, Maid will always be controversial. I mean, I think I've been pretty clear about what my opinion about Maid is that, I think all life should be sacred, and that all life matters, and I think, that Maid is, I don't know, it's just, it
Mhm.
doesn't respect life, and I have a hard time with that. And I understand that, that it exists for a reason for people, if they really are at end of life,
Mhm.
but again, because I'm a Christian man, I've always believed that, God brings you into the world, and God should be the one to bring you out,
Yeah.
and
And
that's my personal opinion, but yeah.
yeah, I mean, I remember that episode just as clear as day. Because like yeah, you're right, Neil. I mean, it is a touchy topic for sure, and I mean, it'll trigger people in different ways when they hear about it. The stories that I kept seeing on social media from time to time, from different individuals when it came to that, is they just wanted proper financial support. Like
Yeah.
it affected their well-being, their housing situation, or just the cost of living. And when people would hear "made," well, that's just the government's way of saying, well, we don't want to help you, so I'm sorry, like you can choose this pathway here,
Yeah.
because yeah, we're just gonna check out on helping people. And that for me, like hearing stories about that, people, I was just like, wow, like does it really have to society have to be that way when, like, I mean, meaning government have to be that way, where if you just give people a floor of, and
Yeah.
some of our guests that they focus on like different versions of basic incomes,
Hmm.
and then that, I think that's just a proven theory right there, where you just give people the basic floor where they can now make decisions, financial or better housing decisions, or their financial situation in a better way. And maybe there's opportunity in different ways where they can work with it from that point on. But waiting on these archaic programs across the country, and the premiers know that they're archaic, but they're
Yeah.
deliberately not wanting to increase these rates, and it just infuriates me that they're okay. Like they're okay with just keeping it as a status quo, and then they'll blame each other government. Well, your government didn't do it. Well, you're in power. Yeah. Well, what did your government do when they're in power? And it's like to keep passing that ping pong ball back and forth.
Yeah.
And then you got the federal government, who announced like 4.5 years ago. Yeah, like people are watching, probably thinking, what? Yeah, 4.5 years
Yeah.
ago for a CDB that's still, I mean, completely bungled right up. I mean, it could have been done properly, from the get go, right? When it was
Hmm.
announced. I mean, they've got all the facts, they've got all the information. And again, it's just excuses of why not to help out your Canadian citizens, right? Uh,
Yeah, and I guess, the bottom line as to why I thought the Megan Gilmore episode was really
mhm,
good is because, it was a balanced episode. She gave it was a balanced look at Maid.
mhm,
I think a lot of the time when you see Maid posted on, online and in social media,
mhm.
it can be kind of glorified or clickbaity, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I really don't like the fact that Maid has become this, you know, thing to glorify or to thing to clickbait. And so I always want to stay well clear of that. And I thought that our episode with Megan Gilmore was a really good balanced episode for that. So
Mhm.
that's why it should have made the list and it didn't. So I kind of apologize for that. But yeah, definitely another honorable mention for sure.
You know what we could probably do, as do a like another compilation of Brent's favorites, and we
Yeah,
we could maybe do another section of those.
we'll put it off for next year though.
Yeah, we'll put that off. So another one where we can do another kind of
Yeah.
Yeah, like a future
Yeah.
one. Yeah, that'd
So
be.
yeah, for Mike Schreiner and Megan Gilmore, it's kind of my little apology that you should have made the list. Yeah. So yeah.
It's just a lot of work that was put into.
Yeah, and it was a lot of work, and I really did pour over. And like I said, it kind of felt stupid to balloon it up that high anyway, because I kind of did want to apply the 10% rule initially, and I thought, well, 15 episodes, and I just couldn't do it, so I kept adding more episodes, and I thought, well, at some point I got to cut off and say, okay, that's it. So that's kind of what I did. But then I realized, I really left a couple of important episodes off there. So
Well,
anyway.
there's always episodes that we'd love to have on. Like, I mean, have every single one on, but that would be,
Yeah.
oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that would be a lot.
Watch all 150 again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
here, let's watch all 150, folks. There we are, all at once. And
Yeah.
there's, an apology to the guests that didn't get their
Yeah.
feet in there.
I mean, they're all great. Like we said, we just tried
Oh,
to highlight the kind of the ones that mean the most for us personally, and the ones that kind of were milestone ones for the show that were important, kind of, yeah, benchmarks or milestones for the show that really kind of pushed the show forward.
hmm
Yeah.
and as we're going along with the show, I mean, it's really progressed a lot from way back in the Twitter Space era to where it is now. I'm really honored, to have so many different guests coming on that they basically come onto a safe spot where they feel comfortable and they can just say how it is, and not be um, interrupted, should we say? I mean, and not saying that they were always interrupted, but like nobody talking over them, and they could just come on, and when the show ends when the guest leaves, and
Yeah.
that's it. Like it's then the show's over. And on Twitter Space, the show at times it was supposed to end, and but then it continued, right?
Yeah.
And I think some of the guests, when I had some feedback from some guests saying, "Well, I thought the show was supposed to end."
Well,
Yeah.
the number one problem with the show, the kind of the Achilles heel
Yes.
was that you would have the show, and then it would just roll over into an open mic
Hmm.
almost every show, and that was kind of a big no-no, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it should have been just having a show night and a guest, and then it be done, and then maybe on alternate nights or one or two times a week have the open mic, and have that only be the open mic with no guest. And
Yeah.
you should, if you had done that, if you had done even just that one thing, that may have prevented a lot of issues. But I mean,
Growing pains.
it's one of those things, lessons learned, right?
Yeah, lessons learned, growing pains, and
So
I've had a couple people in the last couple months, had said, "Well, have you ever thought about?" I watched the show quite a bit. They missed a couple episodes here and there, but they said, "Well, I've watched it. Have you ever thought about bringing back the open mic?" And I said, "Well, we did. We did try. Right now it's shall we say, Neil? I mean, it's on the shelf.
it's
It's
parked.
it's
It's
it's parked
parked.
right now, right? And because the reason why it's parked is because there was a lot of interest, and that's why we had relaunched it on here. And then when we relaunched it, nobody wanted to show interest.
Nobody showed up. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
so
everybody's like so gung ho. They're like, please
yeah,
bring it back. Please.
bring
And
it
so
back.
we
Yeah,
did. And then nobody showed up. And we gave it like maybe what was it? 3 tries, right? We gave
yes,
3 tries to it. And every single try, almost nobody showed up for it. So it's like, well, you said you wanted it, but obviously not. So then
yeah.
we killed it off again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and some of the new followers or people listening in on the podcast, you're wondering what open mic was. Maybe you're not familiar. Open mic was a series that I had going for quite some time on Twitter Space, in between guests. Like, and as you mentioned, Neil, like it would combine after the guest was on, it would kind of flow right into open mic. There was times where there was separate episodes with open mic.
Mhm.
Now, I had at one time I had 57 people who came into open mic, and they're all over talking
Yeah,
everybody.
everybody wants the soapbox, right? And that's
Yeah,
basically what open mic was. is you
Yeah.
turn the mic over to just, whoever had joined the chat. You'd say,
Yes.
okay, now so and so can talk. But everybody wanted to be on soapbox, right? So everybody's over talking each other, and
Yeah.
sometimes
And
it was a big mess. Yeah.
yeah, and I understand like people really were anxious because they want to, talk and get their, message out, what they want to say. And that's why we decided, fast forward into the format that we have now. We tried the open mics that way where just maybe a small group of people. And, it's just, yeah, for now, it hasn't been the popularity that we thought maybe it would be. I'm saying that, maybe we could review that. I mean, if people want feedback, like send us a message, let us know. Would you be open? Yeah, open
Open
to
for an open
a
mic.
yeah, open mic, a small session. When I say small session, I mean we could do as a trial of 3 people, maybe 4 maximum. I wouldn't want any more than that because then it becomes a lot of over talking. But we would all take turns and
Yeah.
basically just kind of put it out there. It's like the rant and rave session that
It
we have.
would it would be just an open invitation really for just anybody, because we always put calls out
Mhm.
for guests to come on, and but maybe there might be a few people out there that are a little bit unsure about coming on the show and kind of carrying a whole show.
Right.
And if you just kind of wanted to get your feet wet to kind of see what it's like,
Mhm.
maybe an open mic would be an opportunity. So, it's something that we could consider again, but it's just one of those things. Like I said, for now it's kind of parked on the shelf, and we'll
Mhm.
see if we will revive it. So it's up to everybody if they really want it to come back. You have to let us know in emails or in the tweets.
Yeah,
And
like send me a Twitter message. I do check them. I don't check my messages every single day on Twitter. Maybe like maybe once a day. I'll go through my notifications and I'll check them out. And yeah, I mean, or if you feel more comfortable, just send me a direct message on Twitter if you want to be more private, and we will review it and we'll see what the popular demand is for it. If there's enough popular demand, then we can kind of review it and look at it and see if that's going to be something that we would want to
and
explore.
maybe the other thing that we should say too is, like, when you had the open mics on Twitter,
Hmm.
of course that was kind of live at the time, right? And I think if we were going to bring back the open mics again, we might do the first few at least. We might do them as almost as a pre-record, just in case, uh, you know, somebody said something a bit off color or
Hmm.
inappropriate. It might be something that we would want to edit down,
Hmm.
and maybe we wouldn't even want to want to release it. I think for if we ever did release it again, the open mic thing, I think it would be in our best interest to kind of keep it an optional thing of doing a pre-record, and if somebody was on the show and they had something really good to say, we could highlight that. And if somebody kind of was being inappropriate, we could just kind of cut that part out, and post
Yeah.
only the good parts of the conversation. Yeah.
And that's when I had open mic on Twitter Space. A lot of the times I wouldn't be recorded. Like it would be not a recorded session
Hmm.
because I felt that it'd be more of a private session for people to
Yeah.
come to and talk about issues that are maybe bothering them. Is it government just neglecting their lives, or is it their neighbor is blasting out a lot of heavy duty laundry detergent it's really irritating your nasal, your allergies,
Yeah.
affecting your allergic reaction, whatever it may be, or your neighbor's dog is barking and it's keeping you awake at night. I mean, there's
Well,
so
well, you know what, Brent? This is a good segue actually,
yeah.
because what you're mentioning here is actually, the open mics would actually be a good perk or feature for like a membership idea, where
Hmm.
because I don't know if I think I've kind of told you, and maybe a lot of our listeners don't realize, but we are very, very close to hitting our first kind of tier level
Hmm.
in YouTube. We're only it's under seven. It sounds like a lot, but it's not really. We're under it's less than 70 view hours away because you have to hit the mark of 3,000 view hours in a what is it? In a year
Hmm.
to get to the first tier, and we're like between 50 and 70 hours away. So
Oh, wow.
if we get 50 more hours watch hours in um in the year,
Hmm.
we'll have triggered that first tier, and that will open up the tier for memberships,
Okay.
and
Very good.
also things like called super likes, where people can just more easily donate if they want to donate. They can just
Hmm.
click a button on the YouTube channel and say, "I want to donate." Click,
Okay.
and we can do live streams for that. And like I said, a lot of private membership things, and
Mhm.
maybe the open mics could be a kind of a membership perk. So
Mhm.
that's something that could be opened up in the very near future. Because, like I said, we're only about 50 to 70 hours away from that, from triggering that first level.
Yeah. So again, everyone, if open mics is something that you could relate to from way back in the Twitter sphere era, and you liked it a lot, and you miss it, and you want to be part of that, let us know. Definitely, like I say again, and
Yeah.
like Neil mentioned just a few seconds ago, that yeah, I mean, it could trigger off a membership
Yeah.
situation, and
The
yeah.
the more people share out the content, we always say like, share, and subscribe.
Mhm.
The more people share out the content and give a like, give a comment, or subscribe, it does help the metrics. So then we're like I said, we're getting up and up and up, and we're going to hit that. We're pretty soon going to hit that tier level, and
Mhm.
then we can start doing all this kind of cool membership stuff. And and that's because we've talked about even something silly like coffee mugs. You
Yes.
know,
Yeah.
like we are serious about it, but I mean that would be another one that we would do. We could do coffee mugs with the PWD Allies logo, and
Instead
give
of this coffee mug here, I would have a PWD.
and have that as a perk too
Yeah.
for membership too. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Would
yeah.
you like to have your PWD Allies coffee mug, and even, and you know what? We could even have your picture on the mug if you want. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm an ally.
As an ally. Yeah.
I'm an official ally. Yeah.
Well,
Um,
exactly it.
so we should say, I mean, we had Cheryl Hardcastle's picture up on the thumbnail and on the opening
Yeah.
title card there. Now she was supposed to come on, but for some reason she's not here, and
Yeah. Hmm.
so hopefully we can rebook. So something must have come up because she was aware of the episode. So I guess something came up last minute
Hmm.
where
Yeah.
she's not on. So we were looking forward to it. So hopefully she can maybe rebook later in the week or something.
Yeah,
Um,
today we were going to have Cheryl Hardcastle joining
mhm.
us for our 150th celebration today. But like you mentioned, Neil, something must have come up, and unfortunately, Cheryl was not able to make it today. I
Mhm.
look forward to having her on whenever that is possible for
We
her.
always we always love it when she comes on and
Oh,
like
it's great.
and
She's She has so much energy. She has so
yeah,
much energy and input
yeah,
into what's going on, and she really puts a positive
yeah,
light on the situation.
yeah,
So when someone's feeling down, she boosts the energy up to give
yeah,
people hope that yes,
yeah,
going to be hope in the horizon. And I
yeah.
love
That
her on. She's
yeah,
my favorite,
and
and many other guests too are my favorite.
like we mentioned
Oh my
on the
God.
22 favorites one, she was kind of your first big name person
Yeah.
on your Twitter Spaces. She was the first one, and that's kind of why we hold her in such high esteem. Is that she was the one that was really out front and really pushing your Twitter Spaces and really kind
Mhm.
of doing the rah rah rah
Yes.
thing. and it's great. So you need big VIPs like that to really push the message, and she was always that one to do that. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and then after Cheryl had came on as the first official MP at the time, like I mean, like
Hmm.
she had retired from that, but she was the first prominent person came on, and after that, it was a ripple effect where I had
Yeah.
started having more
Yeah,
different
you
MPs
had a
and
lot
MLAs.
of big guests lined up.
Oh, I
Yeah.
mean, there was like so many like doctors, nurses. I mean, you
Mm.
name it.
Yeah.
And again, anyone who is out there watching this, if you if you're a professional, like a health professional, definitely reach out to us, or anyone, like anyone wants to come on. If you're a doctor or I don't know. I mean, you
Well,
name.
I mean, there's so many other big name people out there.
Yes,
Like we always throw around names like Carla Qualtrough. I mean,
yeah,
she would be great to get on. I
yeah.
would love to get her on to tell her side. And I don't know if she has to. I don't know if there's a what do you call it? What do they call it? A blackout period where they're not they can't say anything for a while about what happened. So I don't know if she's under any obligation to not really say anything yet. I don't know how that works, but it would be great to have her on and kind of get her scoop on everything that kind of happened and didn't happen with the
Mhm.
with the CDB, and and then people like Rick Hansen. I mean, I've met him a few times now. I would like to get him on. I mean,
Oh, here's another guest,
there's a lot of
Michael
people.
Michael Bublé.
Michael Bublé, come
Michael,
on, Michael,
oh yeah,
come on, Michael.
come on, Michael,
I've
come
tried so
on,
hard. I mean, I've even
come on to the
I
show.
I've resorted to like begging. I've resorted to begging, and it's not a good look. It's it's actually not a good look, but I've kind of resorted to begging, and I even said to to his main publicity person, I said, can you even just do like a 30-minute short? And she's like, no, he doesn't have the time. And I'm like, oh, come on. But yeah, I would love it. I would love it. I'm gonna keep trying. I'm gonna keep trying, I swear. But I would love it if Michael come on. And I mean, it's true that he's kind of been the running joke of the show. I mean, again, the reason why we kind of had him as a running joke, and the reason why we have Tim Hortons as the running joke, because I was thinking, like what's more Canadian than Tim Hortons and Michael Bublé? I mean,
Mhm.
that's like two of those things that's Canada right there, right? To me anyway. So
Yeah,
and again, the reason
it's
I
like maple
really,
syrup there. It's like maple syrup,
yeah,
the Canadian thing.
and the reason why I really like Michael Bublé is for people that don't really know his story. I mean, yes, he's a famous singer and everything, but he also has a son that that had cancer,
Mhm.
that had childhood cancer, and had to do a lot of treatments.
Mhm.
So this is a guy. I mean, yes, he's really famous. He's local to Vancouver, so a super famous local celebrity. But here's the guy that understands what it is to struggle a little bit. He understands disability maybe a little bit more than some celebs might. And he also is a really strong Christian man. Like he's very strong in the faith.
Mhm.
And I just thought, it's just a really important message to have somebody that's a really good local celebrity. He's very self-effacing, or what's the word, or where you can make fun of yourself.
Oh yes.
He's very good at that. Like he just kind of makes fun of himself a lot, and he's just kind of the guy that you would just like to have a beer with, or a rum and eggnog with,
Mm.
and so yeah, I still hold out hope that one day that he'll come on the show and we can have a beer or a coffee with him, or a rum and eggnog, like I said, and just sit down and talk about his experience with his one son with cancer, and all that and his we can talk about his faith and how that's important to him. Because I mean, I think a lot of people when they interview him will talk about his fame and all and his singing career and stuff. But that honestly, that's not what I really want to talk to him about. I want to talk to him about his family life and
Hmm.
kind of what a struggle that was with having a child that was sick with cancer. And I want to hear about the struggle that he had as a Christian man about facing the, how precarious life can be. Sometimes if when you're facing the realities of a sick child, that kind of thing. So that's kind of what I wanted to focus on.
Yeah,
So
and and that's exactly the realities what people go through in a day-to-day situations in their life. Is things can change so quick, so quick. And
mhm.
I mean, just snap of the fingers. 1 minute, perfect person is perfectly fine. They could be walking down across a crosswalk and they could get hit by a car, or that's just probably a pretty harsh example, but it can change a person's life into so quickly. They could be waiting at a bus stop, somebody veers off for some reason, sideswipes somebody, and they could be innocently sitting at a bus stop waiting for a bus, and boom, next thing you know it, they're in hospital and they wake up and you're a paraplegic now. Or like there's so many different examples that happened to one of my neighbors when I was a kid. The poor young guy there. He was playing hockey, and a little accident happened on the rink. He woke up 4 days later, apparently, and he didn't know where he was, what was going on. But he had to learn to re I guess he went through GF Strong and to
Yeah.
learn how to walk again, how to try to navigate things through, and it was a long process, a long process. I think he told me it was like many months
Mhm.
that he was in there for. Just had to reteach himself a lot of things um, that he had his new life right going
Yeah.
forward. Yeah, and like how things can change. So, of a person who doesn't have a disability, we teach them, right? I mean, but they can be allies because they
Yeah.
stand by people with disabilities and learning from us and learning, or vice versa. Like it could be the other way around.
And that's you actually mentioned a pretty important distinction there, Brent, because there is the disabilities you get from birth, and like mine is cerebral palsy, so that's a disability that I got right from birth, right from day one. And I know your sight impairment or your blindness was one that you got basically from day one, as well. But there are those day one disabilities that you get right from birth, and
Yeah,
then there's those acquired disabilities where like
no,
Rick Hansen is one where he was going on a fishing trip. I think it was the story is he was going on a fishing trip and they were all in the back of the pickup truck and they got an accident and then Rick Hansen basically I think he got thrown from the truck and and
I know.
and and broke his back. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, but there's lots of different ways you can acquire a disability through injury later on. But
Hmm.
but it's a very different mindset, right? Because, you know, I don't know about you, but like when I was growing up and I've always say that that when I was young and I'd go to the shopping mall, I would very rarely see other people with disabilities. It would just be me, and that was
Hmm.
because back then, and we're going back, you know, 50 years almost,
Hmm.
maybe. A lot of people with disabilities were locked away
Yeah, they were
or
tucked away.
or or hidden away, right? And I didn't know that. I mean, I,
Hmm.
I was too young to realize that. But I would get I would get people saying like, "Oh, I feel so sorry for you." Like, doesn't that suck
Yeah,
that you had to have a disability? And my response would be, "Well, I don't know any different. Like,
yeah, yeah.
because I mean that's what I was born with. So if you never have legs that work. Like I've never had legs that work. So I don't know what I'm missing, you know what I mean?
Hmm. And
Uh
one
and
thing too that
yeah,
like
yeah.
I'm glad that you explained it. It's kind of like a segue into like almost a parallel of some of the things that you mentioned that I, didn't really know anything different. And that's a good takeaway because for me, like growing up, Neil, like I don't know anything different. Like someone say, well, wouldn't you love to just go get to go and drive, Brent? I don't know. Like what is that like? Like I don't know. Like driving a vehicle, I don't know. Like I can't really wrap my head around it because I don't my vision's not there strong enough to basically focus and concentrate to be able to drive. Like for me, like if all of a sudden I had some kind of cure to my disability for visual impairment, um, like I don't know, like I probably would just keep doing the same thing I'm doing now and just taking the bus because that's what I do. That's my mode of transportation. Like or someone would say, well, you can overcome your disability. When I was a geez, I'm not almost a teenager, not quite. One of my neighbors had bought a house two doors down from where I lived, and said, well, Brent, you could overcome a disability if you really put your mind to it. And I told my mom that, and she said, you need to stay away from that neighbor because that's very, very not a nice thing to say to a person. Oh, you can overcome your disability.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, who is she? Like that, like I was really hurt. Like I said, I can't change who I am, Mom. I mean, am I supposed to? Like, am I supposed to change my life because somebody wants me to? And she says, no, Brent, people have to accept you for who they are. And if they don't want to accept you for who they are, then they shouldn't be around you, right? And I learned that growing up, going forward through school and getting teased. Like I used to get picked on a lot, so I would be kind of almost like a loner myself. Like um, there was other students in my classes that had disabilities, but they weren't having like sight impairments. There was other ones who had the learning disabilities, but then there was other
Mhm.
ones who then did come into the school who I could then relate to because they did have disabilities where there were sight impairments. So we kind of sort of grouped in together, but I still
Yeah.
felt kind of isolated away because
Yeah.
it's just how other people would treat me. They say used to call me like Four Eyes. I go so
Yeah.
one of my teachers had said to me, well, Brent, why are you upset? Well, I mean, the person called me Four Eyes. She goes, well, think of it this way: Four Eyes is better than Two Eyes, isn't it? I go,
Yeah.
it's true. So I started using that. They said use that as your ammunition going forward, and you can't change who you are.
Yeah.
I used to for quite some time. I'd go through school where I wouldn't look at a person directly because I didn't want to get treated differently. So I wouldn't really focus on them, but I would be looking at them and then they would be staring at me. And I'm thinking, well, what are they looking at? Well, they're watching my eyes moving back and forth. And it's part of my condition, stigmatism, but it goes further deep to more in depth of stigmatism. Where people would think I'm not really concentrating on them, like I'm not really like I'm nervous or something. So
Yeah.
and then so for quite a while when I was going through school, I would then turn my head and they could talk to me
Right.
and I look and pretend that I'm looking at something else. Oh yeah, no, I'm listening to you. And then I look back at them
Yeah.
because I didn't want them to keep staring at me. Like, why are you staring? And they're watching
Mhm.
my eyes, like trying to figure out what's going on with
Yeah.
this guy. And I figured I'm nervous. So like employers used to do that to me too, like for quite a while they
Mhm.
figured I was nervous in an interview. So yeah, we've got other people to go through.
Yeah.
Or they would say, well, they didn't want to take the time because, well, you've got a disability. We don't, it's going to cost us too much money. You're going to be too slow. Um, I worked at
Yeah.
I worked at a corporation, and I'll even say it right out to the media, like to anyone watching it or listening to this. I worked at McDonald's like way back. Like I tried getting a job because everybody in school, hey, they want a job at McDonald's, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of my teachers said, Brent, go for it. I mean, why not? I said, well, you're good with people, like you're a chatterbox when I was a kid. I mean, how was that, right? And so I applied and I said, yeah, like everyone was getting a job. So my mom goes, well, it's up to you. I mean, as long as it doesn't interfere with your homework. I mean, maybe 1 or 2 days. I go, okay. And, maybe a couple hours. Like, well, she said she didn't know how many hours they could give, like 4 hours minimum, I think it was at the time.
Mhm.
So I applied and they didn't get back to me. And everybody else in my class got the job, not me. I was the only one. I
Wow.
was so upset. And I said, well, what did I do wrong? And I talked to one of our student counselors. I said, well, what did I do wrong? I don't know, Brent. I mean, why didn't you get the job? I go, I don't know. I'm just me. So
Mhm.
they said, well, you know what? We'll look into this for you.
Mhm.
And the counselor actually contacted the store. The
Mhm.
actual contact person said, well, why didn't you give Brent the job?
Mhm.
Oh, well, we don't want to deal with people with disabilities. He's too slow. His
Yeah.
vision would get in the way. Well,
Yeah.
can you not accommodate him? When we accommodate him in school here,
Yeah.
that's what we do. We
Yeah.
accommodate our students. Well, that's our decision, and that was their answer. That's our decision. We're the
Yeah.
employer, right? He's
Yeah.
in school, and so I took it personally. I said, no, like I said, that's discrimination. And I knew about the word discrimination because
Yeah.
we're one of our classes in school. We were talking about discrimination
Mhm.
and an accommodation. And so I wouldn't leave it alone. My mom kept telling me, Brent, leave it alone, leave it alone. They've made their decision.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to do cashier customer service. What I didn't realize, I said, well, I'll learn if you can teach me. So as time went on, they gave me a job, and it wasn't doing that. It was doing cleaning, maintenance work.
Yeah.
uh Over time, I then went back to college. It wasn't for me. I went back to college. I ended up going back to the company again years
Well,
later, right?
do you mind if I stop you there, Brent,
Yeah,
before
sure.
you go too far ahead? Because
Yeah.
I kind of wanted to stop you when you mentioned disability discrimination. Think
Hmm.
that's important to key in on because, you know, there are things like our human rights tribunals and the what's the other one? There our office for BC Office for Human Rights Commission here, and and there are those supposed things out there that are supposed to help with things like that, right? But I think what I've discovered is what when they talk about disability discrimination, a lot of those things, uh, the so-called cases that you hear that the BC Human Rights will take on are things like, Billy can't get access to the playground,
Hmm.
so build him a ramp to get access to the playground, and they're all excited that they got that done, and
Yeah.
fine, but that's such a limited scope, right?
Hmm.
It's like, well, discrimination is only limited to if you can't get access to a playground, so let's build a ramp, or if you can't get access to a store, let's build another ramp, or if you can't get access to the 10th floor of a building, make sure you install an elevator. I mean, that's the extent almost of the disability discrimination. They don't really handle they don't want to handle discrimination cases about jobs or
Hmm.
about, like I've always said, the clawback of my pension, like of a protected pension. They don't
Yeah.
want to touch. They say, well, that's not discrimination, Neil.
Hmm.
They just like we only want to talk about discrimination if it has to do with a playground ramp. You
Right.
know, like don't talk to us about like discrimination at the job site or discrimination like that we're taking away a protected pension from you because you better not call that discrimination. But unfortunately, that is
It is.
discrimination. But
It is
but
totally.
they're very focused. It's like, well, we only want to talk about ramps,
Hmm.
and playground access, and we'll defend that. But
Hmm.
we sure as hell aren't going to defend like a clawed back pension or the fact that you're getting you know you're getting pushed aside for a job or you're getting discriminated for a place to rent at because you're not making enough money. You know,
That too. Yeah.
those are like huge
That is.
discriminations, and our BC Human Rights Tribunal goes, oh
Yeah.
well, we're not going to touch it. Oh well, who cares? You
Well, that's
know?
That's
And that you know
exactly
what, it just
that's
pisses
exactly
me.
it, though, Neil.
Yeah,
There's so many parts of discrimination that people with disabilities go through that the public, in general. I mean, I can't say that people in general, uh, like a lot of public don't know what's going on, but there is a lot of people in the public eye that don't have disabilities that don't know what goes on.
yeah.
I mean, when I was talking about previous employment, like it was a lot of discrimination, or they say, fine, just give them the job. Just yeah, you know what? Because I complained to their head office.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't me. It was not at first. It was my school, my mom, and then I
Hmm.
actually went to a meeting and they gave it to me, and then I got jumped. I got jumped. Like the company did not want me there. It was like I could just tell. Like it was like I was more of a burden at first. It was okay.
So they
Like
got they got the employees to go after you kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I was jumped. I was traumatized for many years, many
Hmm.
years. And I never talked about it. My mom knew what was going on. And I was scared every time I would watch behind my back, everywhere I'd go,
Hmm.
thinking that someone was following me. I mean, I had it was on my birthday, and I had just got my paycheck, and the store cashed it. The store cashed my paycheck. Now, that's a break in the law, right? The store's not
Right.
supposed to cash your paycheck. Here,
Yeah.
we'll give you the money, the value of your paycheck, and because I didn't have time to go to the bank,
Hmm.
and they said, "Well, it's your birthday, so go and treat yourself." Because I did a split shift that day. I had
Hmm.
gone to it, and then I had gone to my other part-time job for 4 hours, and then I had gone back there in the evening.
Hmm.
So in the meantime, they cashed my check in the morning. So I went, and the first thing I did was I'm going to go and buy a bunch of CDs.
Hmm.
CDs, people are thinking CDs, what are they? Well, I mean, yeah, like that's going back some years, right? But I had bought eight of them, eight, and they were on sale. But yeah, I really wanted them, and so I played them at work that evening. I played them on their disk drive at work, and in our employee room, right? So I listened to us, boom, 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 and I was just so excited. I'm thinking, yay! Like I got to hear my music, and while I was on my break, and I remember leaving that night, and I was jumped on my way home. Somebody called my name. I didn't know who it was, and I was on my way to catch a bus to go home. I didn't make it home. I got
Wow.
home at like 3 o'clock in the morning. My mom was beyond frantic. She was phoning around everywhere. And meanwhile, I had to write out a witness statement. I'm running down the middle of a highway. Imagine that. And I mean, my perception, my balance was off because it was already off anyways, but it was really off
Mhm.
because now I'm freaked, right? So I'm running down the middle of the road and
Right.
a cop car comes behind me, like honk, honk, like, what are you doing? And I said, I
Hmm.
jumped. So they went around and trying to find where the individuals were. And yeah,
Hmm.
like I went through a lot of trauma back then. I mean, and I just
Yeah.
want to tell the story to people so they figure, oh my God, like, yeah, and that came down to discrimination from like at the time. I forgave the employer over time. Like it wasn't really on them. At least I didn't know. Like I couldn't prove nothing. And I
Hmm.
went back to college. I couldn't seem to find what I was looking for. Educational assessments. I actually was assessed that I had a learning disability on top of my visual impairment, and other diagnoses that were never really fully diagnosed. That was Sonia's phone ringing, by the way. Everyone,
Okay.
what was going on there? So live on air. But yeah, I mean, so I found out I had other disabilities as I went on, and that was something that I was going through college at the time, and we were talking about it's okay, Brent, to talk about disabilities because it's who you are. And so I had to share my new information with the class.
Mhm.
And they said, well, why don't we go and give the company another shot? And I said, no, I was scared. I was scared. I said, no, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. Like,
Mhm.
so I tried again, and again, long story short, now that I'm been picking on that big corporation, but I hurt myself physically. My vertebrae was compromised. I won't get into details, but to a point where my toes were numb all the way up to my neck, and I was getting severe headaches. I felt indication, but the next day, so I
Yeah.
like I now here I am. Like I basically can't do any repetitive work anymore.
Hmm.
I can, like if I try to, I like to do things because I like to keep busy. But I find even trying to move furniture, like a little bit here and there, it's like a reminder of saying, hi, remember
Yeah.
me? Do you remember me? Yeah, yeah, I remember
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, I think that's a really important to mention is like, because like you and I both have held a number of jobs in the
oh yeah,
past, but the fact of the matter is like you always say, disabilities don't go away, they just get worse,
they
right? They
do.
they just progress and get worse. And definitely in my case, with my injury to my broken hip,
Yes.
that's really put a wrench into things too for me. And I mean, I can't tell you how many times that I keep thinking about I would love to get back to work and do something, but like just being realistic, I realize, you know what?
Yeah.
Like my mobility is so impacted now that I really can't go very far from my house now. Like I
Yeah.
basically have to stay close to my house. Like even just going to the washroom now, like my washroom is set up for me at home
Hmm.
the way I want it, the way I need it. Like I can't be guaranteed of a washroom that works for me anymore.
Hmm.
And like and I don't know if I've told anybody on the podcast yet, but like I don't how many months ago was that? Like a few months ago now, I spent another $15,000 to put in a accessible shower because I can't even lift my foot. I can't lift my feet up anymore. So I need to get just a wheel-in shower. I'm
Yeah.
not I don't use a wheelchair to wheel in, but I need something with no lip so I can get my foot over, that I can just walk in without any having to go over any kind of lip.
Hmm.
And I mean, you're talking huge bucks, and I had to finance the whole thing, and
Yeah.
I'm still paying for it, of course. But it's not a option. It's not a case of it's an optional thing. It's a nice thing to have.
Hmm.
It's not to the point of saying, well, gee, Neil, this accessible shower now, that's a nice thing to have. It's not optional. Like it
Not
was,
optional.
it's a
It's
requirement.
yes,
I had to spend the money.
it's a
Uh,
necessity that you
I
have.
had to spend the money, right?
It's
And this is what it's come down to me now for work too, is like
mhm.
I am so tied to being close to home now, like I said, with an accessible washroom and accessible shower, and I have things set up in my house the way I need to have them set up in my, like if I leave the house, I'm not guaranteed of having things the way I want them,
Yeah. Well,
right?
it's like one company that I was at, like, and it was so easy, but it was hard on the feet, hard on the legs, standing in one spot on concrete, right? And so I was there, and all I was asked one time to do, and again, and I'm thinking my mind says, yeah, you can do this, and so I went, and it was like warehousing work, and it was so like all I had to do is just read. All I had to do is read a little barcode and some numbers, and then make sure that certain things are in certain envelopes, and then just seal it up and throw it on. And again, it came down to not being able to read that. The fine print for so small. And
Mm.
again, it's like a supply chain thing. So you got a kink in the chain, they're going to get frustrated. So they started getting frustrated. Why are you having trouble with, Brent? The small print again. And I started getting eye fatigue because I kept straining myself. My mind kept saying, Brent, you can do this. You can do this. I was just so wiped by the time the day was because my eyes were so tired and I was getting a headache. But I kept pushing myself, saying, no, you can do it. And I thinking, well, there must be something like, and that was way back when, and on that, and I thinking, geez, like, and so I went to another company, and I said, well, I went back into toward the hospitality industry, but this was warehousing, so I got to figure I'll go, and my expertise is in customer service. Oh, sorry, yeah, we don't need customer service in this. Only cashier. We get cashiers, and they can go and do cleaning. We don't need somebody doing just cleaning. Oh, wow, sorry about that. And it was everywhere I looked, and I thought, well, maybe I'm going to have to put my expertise to something. And I didn't know what to do. So for like quite a while, I would just kind of go to community like gatherings and talk to people and just kind of figure out what other people were doing and in my situations. And what it came down to was I had a lot in common with so many other people that had disabilities that would say, well, yeah, like we're in the same boat too, but they had different strengths in different areas. Like some people would do painting, or they would do crafts and arts, and they would just volunteer to help out in different things. And I thought, well, I don't know. Like I'm trying to find another knack because all I was used to doing was what I was doing, right?
Mm.
And I realized that repetitious stuff or vision wise, a lot of things like simple things that I used to be able to do, like dishwashing, and
Mhm.
I began to realize over time, like I went to an eye doctor too for a checkup, and I don't really make it publicly known on like I don't even talk too much on the podcast about it either. My eye condition is I was told it's going to be stable for quite a few years. It may stay that way. My condition will not improve. It may not get better. It won't get better, but it won't deteriorate to a point where it's going to like rapidly it get a lot worse in that condition. However, as we get older,
Yeah,
it'll
it
enhance.
automatically will
Yeah,
get worse.
and
Yeah.
so I was told that things that I might be able to have done or took not really for granted, but be able to do for
Mhm.
hand and eye coordination. Get my little tongue tied there. I find that very font size is very tiny for me to read,
Mhm.
and so like I look at little emojis, I have to reach my hand, go, oh, what is that? And so for some people that would be able to see at say 200 feet, I can see at 20 feet.
Yeah.
So when I'm looking at something tiny, it's very difficult, and for me, it's like frustrating because like my mind says, "Yeah, you can do this,
Mhm.
Brent. You can do this," but I know that I can't, right? So I push myself, the can-do attitude, and that's, I guess, a good thing, a good
Yeah, and it's
like
just
good
like
attributes, right? But
it's just like me with with my cerebral palsy. Like growing up, and I had crutches for the longest time,
mm,
and I never slowed down. I never really considered my crutches really.
yeah,
But it's kind of funny. Like same thing is like in your mind's eye
hmm
when I was at a beach or something where I had to go over a log. Say there's a bunch of logs, I had to go over a log. I
hmm
mean, in my mind's eye, I was being very graceful. Like I could see it in my mind. I can be just very graceful getting over
hmm
this log, but in reality, I mean, it was a bitch to get over those logs, or whatever. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I remember,
Um,
like I'd love to
so
like, play like a basketball, and like we'd have like this basketball hoop in our yard. My brother built one in cement area and a basketball hoop. So I'd bang bang. This is great. And then so he says, well, let's play frisbee. One of our friends came over, one of our neighbors came over and played frisbee, and they threw frisbee and hand and eye coordination. It would
yeah,
fly, but I would miss it. Like, why did you
yeah,
miss that? Why did you miss that? Because it was
yeah,
coming at me too fast.
yeah,
And yeah, so yeah, it
yeah.
was like like things that I'd want to have fun with kids, and well, and of course my brother would say, well, you're just a little baby, go and play with whoever, and like that, basically kind of like an ableist kind of comment of saying, well, yeah, like I don't have a disability. I go, I have a disability. Like I'm trying to work with it the best way I can. Like,
Mhm.
oh, well, yeah, okay, well then you need to go and sit in the back there and play with the little kitties there.
You just need a better attitude, Brent.
Yeah,
Get a better attitude. Yeah,
and that's the thing,
yeah,
right? It's like
yeah,
if you don't live the life of a person
yeah,
with disabilities, you don't understand what you
yeah.
go through, right? And
But you know what? I think this is a good time to end the podcast and
yeah,
just do closing comments because I think you could did
yeah,
a kind of a mic drop there.
yeah,
So let's stop with that mic drop because it was a good
yeah,
one. And yeah, so I just wanted to quickly say as my closing comment, um, you know, and I think you can appreciate too is like all the time that I had, the different places that I've worked. I've always felt the burden and the pressure to be kind of the one, what do you want to call it? The one disabled person, like even through elementary school and high school and like I was the only disabled person in my whole school the whole way through. And then a lot of the time when I was at my job site, I would be the only one too. And so you always kind of felt that burden, like, okay, I have to be the one to show employers and everybody and teachers that I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. So you're always like striving to show that example. And I mean, it's a lot sometimes, right? I mean, I think people don't realize kind of what burden and pressure that is to always kind of be on all the time and say, yeah, this is me with a disability. And you kind of have to be that one, what do you want to call it? Like a bulletin board with a flashing light saying, I have a disability and here's how you can help me, kind of thing. It's a lot. It's hard to kind of put that out all the time and be the one to educate people all the time. But that's kind of what we have to do all the time. We're always having to educate people.
Mhm.
So that's my closing comment. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for that, Neil. That's a good it's a good closing comment on that. I could echo that loud and clear. And I just through life experiences going through like all the way from like kindergarten all the way through elementary, high school, through college, numerous college courses, and I want to thank all my instructors. Throughout the time, through college, who had taught me a lot about just it's okay, Brent. Just you're who you are and accept who you are. And if people don't accept you for who you are, that's on them, not on you. And that always stuck in my mind, and that it's okay. And I remember there was times that I was in one of my classes, and I like when I learned about different diagnoses that were put on me, and I already knew that in my own self, like there was different things that that I was going through, but it really wasn't really that way as on paper, like and actually told to you directly by doctors.
Mhm.
And that was before I even got onto disability. Like so, when my family doctor says like, "Yeah, okay, so what's new with you?" And well, here you go, doc. Whoa, hang on. And he's like looking at this like, whoa, okay. Yeah, no, I recognize that doctor. Well, why did you go and see those doctors? Because I was told to by the college. Okay. And so he made calls. And he goes, okay, wow. Okay. I already knew that in you. Like I knew that. But that's just who you are, Brent. Like it's just on paper. Like it's nothing changes. It's who you are. And I came
Yeah.
from my family doctor. It's who you are, right? As a
Mhm.
person, people accept that. And so my this is part of my closing comment is to anyone who has disabilities, you are who you are. You love yourself for who you are. People around you, I hope maybe they don't, maybe they
Yeah.
do. They love you for who you are.
Well, it's a choice, right? It's
Yeah,
it's a
yeah,
choice from other people and from government to decide, like, do we love people with disabilities or don't we? You
yeah.
know?
And
Yeah.
it's all about acceptance of just accepting that person for who they are. And I had one of my good friends who had passed away actually, and recently I just found out not that long ago that there was another person who I knew in my life had passed away. Um, it's really sad due to the toxic drug overdose. Apparently, I didn't know that. I had lost contact with him for about 15 years now. I had lost contact with him.
Mhm.
But I found out, I guess I don't know what happened, but unfortunately, he was a victim to that. So God rest your soul, Justin. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And he was a good friend of mine. So I found that out, and yeah, I mean, life is precious, right? You take each day at a time because you just don't know anyone around you that might happen to. He wasn't a person with disabilities, just people know. He accepted me for who I am. He knew what I could do and what I couldn't do. And this is not against anybody who out there watching this going, well, was he pointing fingers at me? Or no, like this is just a general comment of just accept a person for who they are, be who they are, and just love everybody in your life. Like never take things for granted. After my mom and my mother passed away, it really put a perspective on my own life, personal life. Was Brent, don't take things for granted, because never say I wish I could have said goodbye, or I wish I could have been spent more time with my mom or my mother. I spent a lot of quality time with both of them. I loved them both very dearly. I loved my mom I shouldn't say more than my mother, but because I grew up with my mom, right? So, and I always thought it was my mom all the time until I was in my early teenage years that I found out that I was adopted. Oh, so that was the lady who kept calling all the time, and I would answer the phone. Hi, hello, Brent speaking. Can I help you? Hi, can I speak to your mother? No, who's this? Oh, this is your aunt.
This
And
mother number
it was
two.
my what was my mother, but she says it was your auntie. Oh, hi, auntie. Mom's on the and yeah, so it was that I the quality time that I spent with both of them, I cherish all my life. So what I guess my ending comment here to end the podcast is cherish every moment in your life. Do not take for granted. Hold government accountable. If it's provincial, federal, if they're going to promise something, you hold them accountable. Make them actually do. They're representative. We are the people who represent these, the individuals who get into power. If for some reason they're kicking the can down the road, we'll find out why are you kicking the can down the road. Hold them accountable, and friends and family around you, just cherish those moments because life is too short. And yeah, just enjoy life.
And
Because
you know what, Brent? We've spent now, this is 150 episodes of holding the government accountable,
yes,
of sharing stories
yes,
and holding the government accountable.
yeah,
I think we've done that for the last 2 years.
we have,
150 episodes of holding people accountable for, these kind of oppressive policies. Kind
yes,
of wake up, what are you doing?
yes,
We always talk about accidentally on purpose. You're accidentally on purpose oppressing people with disabilities. You're keeping them down on purpose. Why?
yeah, and
Stop doing that.
yeah,
Yeah.
in a message, to the government, it's not just the person with disabilities that you're affecting. You're affecting their families too,
Yeah,
like
exactly.
families, their relatives. And so many times I've heard this is that people in the community around here, it's not even just the person, it's all around family, their allies, all around them. So again, whatever your reason is to delay the inevitable to help people with disabilities, we are residents, we are permanent residents in our province.
Mhm.
We are Canadian citizens, so we are part of Canada. If you don't want us to live in Canada any longer, then just say so. Just say so.
We can all take MAID,
Yeah, I mean, just come and
and
say that we don't
there's
want.
a solution.
Yeah, just come and say
Yeah,
that we don't want people with disabilities in our country any longer.
yeah,
If you
yeah,
can prove us wrong, but anyway,
yeah,
I'm just being very harsh on that.
yeah.
But hey,
Well,
I
actually, we have Kent in chat, and one time
oh I can
we had a podcast, and he said, I forget which podcast it was, but he said, I don't know why you didn't mention this, Neil, and so I'll mention it now, Kent, if you're still on the podcast. Is he said, well, you should have said that our immigration, Canadian immigration, if you have a disability, anybody with a disability cannot enter the country of Canada. If you have a disability, you're automatically disqualified
oh
from entering Canada.
oh that's total discrimination.
Yeah, and
Beyond total discrimination.
yeah, I know, and I mean that's a huge thing that I forget which episode it was on, but we should have mentioned it
Yeah,
because it is a thing. Uh, it doesn't get talked about, but it is a thing where you're automatically disqualified. If you have a disability, you're automatically disqualified. So I mean,
yeah.
it is what it is, right? I mean, that's just one more example of openly discriminatory policy.
Yeah, because there was one guest now, Neil, I'd like to try to reach out to. I'm not sure if he's subscribed to our channel, but I'm going to reach out to him on Twitter. I call it Twitter. Uh, Elon Musk calls it X. I call it Twitter because it's always Twitter. A gentleman named Adam, Adam Fear, and so I'm going to try to reach out. It's Adam's birthday today.
Okay.
So I wished him a happy birthday, and he liked my post. Adam is actually from England. He's
Okay, that's cool.
yeah, from northwest England, and so he does a lot of advocacy when it comes to people with disabilities. Nonstop posts regarding Very important topics. He's liked some of my tweets before. And yeah, I saw it was his birthday today. It was 28th birthday, so I reached out and
Oh,
said happy
wow.
birthday, and he liked it. So
Nice.
yeah,
Yeah, Kent just made a clarifying comment. He said if you weren't born here, like if you and I weren't born here, Brent,
yeah.
we wouldn't be able to get into the country
Oh,
because we have a disability.
oh, wow,
Yeah, so
terrible. Shame on.
it's only because you and I were born here that we're allowed to stay here as Canadian citizens. If we weren't born here, we wouldn't be allowed in.
Oh, I see. But then once if you don't have a disability before you got here, they'll let you in. And then you say
Yeah,
like 1 second after you're here, you could get a disability, but now
yeah,
you can be here.
yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
okay, got it,
Yeah,
got it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Good,
Anyway,
good, good on the federal government. Thanks everyone for tuning in
we should
today.
punch out though. Yeah,
I hope everyone's enjoyed our
yeah,
show, our 150th episode. Yeah, definitely look forward to having Cheryl Hardcastle on in the very near future. If you want to be a guest on our show and talk about your lived experience, yeah, definitely reach out to us. We'd love to have you
yeah.
on.
So what I'll end up doing is I'll end up changing the thumbnail for the show. Then I'll update it a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, we hope that Cheryl can eventually come on again, maybe in the next week or so. She'll reschedule and come on. But this was a good show, and I hope people go back and look at our previous one too, where we talk about our 22 favorites.
Hmm.
So because that was a good one. That was a good one to celebrate too. But
Hmm.
yeah, it was a good show.
Yeah, definitely. And I look forward to many, 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 many more.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thanks.